Welcome, listener, to Of Dice and Them.
I've been waiting for you, adventurers!
A TTRPG actual play podcast full of hijinks and too many in-jokes.
Do you have any cards I could keep close to my chest?
New episodes released on the first Monday of every month.
How hot is this ghost?
Can't wait for the next episode?
I want to chomp on it and not let go.
Follow Of Dice and Them on Twitter and Instagram.
Ah, yes. No, good idea, that, yes.
Download now, wherever pods are cast.
Do you go closer?
Of Dice and Them!
Yep.
No.
Yeah, heedlessly.
Absolutely not.
Life's a game, the world's a stage, and we are merely role-players, where theatrical people play role-playing games. I'm Matt, I've been your compere for this main house production, and I'm joined backstage by the cast of that production.
Hi, I'm Helen. I played Melody the Constructed.
Hi, I'm Dave. I play Mick the Chosen.
Hey.
And I'm Strat, and I played Brier the Monstrous.
Did we just roll more than usual this season? Or did we roll badly more than usual? Because I feel like everybody leveled up a lot.
I rolled appallingly. I probably failed definitely 6+ times, so that was 2 levels.
Well, how do you feel about potentially leveling up some more?
Yay!
End of session admin questions. So, I'm going to ask you some questions, and when we've answered them all, we're going to find out whether we get to mark 0, 1, or 2 more XP each. So, question 1. Did we conclude the current mystery?
Yes.
You sure did.
Hooray!
The mystery was Becky, and you concluded that.
I concluded Becky. So does that give us 1?
No, not yet.
Ooh, not yet.
Did you save anybody from certain death or worse?
Was it certain death if you remained in the shop at the start?
I think diving straight into
Saving
a collapsing shop to save bystanders definitely counts for this. And Mick specifically chose not to knock Becky over onto a passing car when he could have done.
Also, I guess had Becky succeeded, everybody would have died.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we also didn't kill Becky.
And we didn't kill Becky.
So we technically saved her from us killing her.
So that's 2 yeses.
Mm-hmm.
Did we learn something new and important about the world?
Loads. We learned stuff about Melodies' creator and Diane and some horrible plot to cover everybody in blood. We learned what the giant wanted.
Yeah, plenty of new and important
Plenty of
things.
new stuff.
3 yeses. And did we learn anything new and important about one of the hunters? I feel like there's an overlap here.
We learned quite a lot about Mick, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, and some stuff about Melody that maybe even Melody wasn't fully conscious of.
Mm-hmm.
So 4 yeses means everybody gets to mark 2 more XP. Is that more levelling up for anybody?
Yes.
Okay, so Melody gets another improvement after the session. Do you know what you want, or do you want to sleep on it?
Yeah, so I'm going to gain an ally so Diane can come back. Or if she is brought back by you at some point, there's an opportunity she would be on our side.
Absolutely. I mean, if you're taking that improvement to get her as an ally, then it's not up to me.
Amazing.
You decide when she's around. Does it say anything about like what kind of ally, or whether you have to pick that or discuss that or anything?
It says, gain an ally, brackets, you create a friend, literally. So I think that is written so you can physically make a friend. But Diane just sort of turned up and wanted to be friends, and that's a,
It makes a lot of sense. Shall we talk about Diane, since we're on that subject?
Yes. So my impression of events, of what, no, sorry, not of events, of a bigger picture. What she's saying is that she was made as part of a project for the hunt. So when we have seen the hunt before, there was a headless horseman chucking blood around. It seems like Diane has been built to make that process more efficient.
That seems like a logical conclusion. We actually saw... So you all destroyed an outrider, a headless horseman, in Quarry. And we actually saw in Fear itself that the hunt, like the heads of the hunt, were trying to recruit a new outrider and struggling. So it seems like they've outsourced, it would appear.
Okay, yeah, that's not good.
It's not great, but you seem to have tempted her away from her job and suggested that she might be able to choose what she does.
Of course she can.
This is the first... So we've touched a little bit on Melodies' backstory. We sort of saw that I think we saw in an epilogue, like the tourist trap was particularly interested in data about Melody, suggesting that maybe she was under some sort of surveillance. But this is the first time we've really engaged with it and had anybody from her. I hesitate to call Diane somebody from Melody's past because she brand new.
Yeah.
But somebody from that part of her life turning up and reminding her of things that she may have forgotten.
And it seems like Dr. Bantham must have a way of sustaining himself, which is curious. That's outside anything that we've seen in Sherrydown so far.
Mysteries upon mysteries. Interesting to sort of have this... The creator is always going to loom quite large in a story about a constructed person. And I think it's fun to keep the actual creator off stage and just hear like secondhand and through in not necessarily trustworthy memories about who he is, what he wants, what his attitude to Melody is. And, obviously, Helen, you can make up your mind and decide for yourself what you think the truth is and what Melody's version of that is. And potentially we can find something more about that later in future productions.
Great.
Other big things. So I feel like everybody got some quite big stuff happening to them because we saw the debut of Brier's crew, the Chaos crew, the Guardians of the Forest, and also Mick has fully switched playbooks and got to be a brick mech this session.
Yeah, is that something that he can repeat, or was that a situational thing?
I'm going to give you the text of that move, and that's a move you can do now.
Oh, wow, great. I mean, it's not so great now that people are able to remember what's happening because it's quite a conspicuous move, but it's a helpful one to have.
Yeah, we've sort of been noting that people are remembering, but we haven't seen like proper consequences or fallout yet from the fact that just all of the ordinary people are retaining all of this weird stuff that's happening.
Well, so sorry to whoever's playing next.
Yeah. Something we can tackle as we go. But how was that in terms of the sort of we talked about in the post show for Great Fire that sort of bringing up the giant stuff was almost an accident in that session, or like it came up because Brier was pursuing it, not because it was necessarily something that I had planned as something big that was going to happen that session. So how did it feel to kind of flesh out what that meant this time?
It's been really nice, and I think it's actually worked so fortunately with the way the leveling up worked as well, at like a moment in the story that made sense to change as well. That's really helpful when the mechanics of the game help to tell what's happening. Is the whole point of how these things work. So that was really fun. And also the use of it being giants and the way that's all worked out in terms of strength and mixed character of him wanting to move forward and make stuff happen, just giving him more impetus to do that is great.
More ability to just run in a straight line and ignore anything in his path.
Exactly.
And Strat, tell us a little bit about the creative process behind the crew, because the characters we ended up with weren't the first draft necessarily, were they?
No. Well, Charles bless him, almost wasn't a thing. The other three there were two options. Charles was either going to be a bipedal badger in a top hat, and I'm so glad he was. I'm so glad you gave him a penny farthing. But he was very close to simply being Winnie the Pooh, because Winnie the Pooh is now out of copyright. So
yeah, as long as you don't put him in a red T-shirt,
yes,
you can use Winnie the Pooh in whatever you like.
Exactly. And so then I also thought, well, maybe I would just have Winnie the Pooh, Tigger, Piglet, and Eeyore as the crew. But that seemed to be getting a bit much. So I decided Charles was a better option.
It could have been fun, and it could have fit in with that theme that we've had from the start of a lot of folklore is people misremembering stuff that they've sort of been made to forget. So it could be like A.A. Milne genuinely had an experience with some fae and forgot it and wrote Winnie the Pooh based on the jumbled memories of that. And Brier is friends with the originals.
Yeah, that's a possibility. But then you'd have had to bother Winnie the Pooh voice, and
and who knows what elements of the voice are copyrighted. Copyright law's so weird.
Yeah, it seemed like it would complicate things a little too much if we had to work out what that actually meant with you playing Winnie the Pooh. So and Charles turned out to be great and can steal electricity, which I think is wonderful.
Yeah, so we've left the town with no power at all, and with loads of people being like, I saw some giant robots fighting.
Yeah, and all those boulders, and then there was that six-legged horse, and then they were all sat in a shop.
You've destroyed the reputation of my cafe by having your friends there.
Or have I?
Well...
Brier's very pleased that it all ended up a shop, because that's perfect post-film sequence for Vengeance, where the team end up in a shawarma joint. Except now it's coffee and cake.
I'm enjoying, this this is not a direction that I was deliberately driving in, but it's almost like if we continue with the town's electricity has been stolen and we don't just immediately sort of put it back at the start of the next one, we're sort of almost, with everybody being able to see spirits and weird things happening and electricity being off, it's almost like we're moving back to Arthurian Britain in Sherrydown, which could be quite an interesting angle to pursue that I hadn't really considered before.
There you go.
Yeah, we'll see where we go with the next one. I enjoyed, Strat, your choice to give your crew the ally tag, motivation to obey the spirit of your instructions, and then to not give them instructions.
Yes. Well, there's a few things that Brier wanted, like the singing or the pickpocketing, but I decided that they're still fae. They're just playing. They have no reason to be in a crew with Brier. Brier's the guardian of the forest, fine. So they're sort of technically in control, but not really in command, and have no real desire to be a leader in the sort of more traditional sense. So I felt it made more sense that they're there because they know that they're just going to have fun, and Brier will let them mess around a bit. And so long as they sort of do what they're asked and don't mess up this strange thing Brier's got going with all these weird hunters that they tend to hang around with, it makes sense that they're there.
I just honestly don't know what to do when you spend luck anymore, because you are maximum disruption from the very beginning of this adventure, and I don't mean that in any kind of negative way. I enjoyed it a hell of a lot.
Well, it was different this time because Brier had an actual goal for the first time in a while, which was get to the bottom of Mick and kind of treat him as a bit of an experiment in how this magic is working and what's going on, and to try and I felt that Brier's plan was to try and force the enhancement of that power, and it seemed like the only way of doing that was to put him in danger and to force him to use that stuff. So the fact that in very quick succession that meant, thanks to some terrible rolls, that he just turned out to be a powerful chosen one of the giants is that's success for Brier. So that's kind of tick off the list, and they can kind of go back just to doing general mayhem now. I think they're almost getting kind of a bit bored now because like, well, I've done that. On to the next thing. Like Mick can take care of the giant. He can talk to the giant now himself, so I don't need to be there.
We sort of started the session with something we haven't really done so much in Vigil up to this point, which is just like, obviously it was supernaturally triggered, but just giving you a mundane disaster to deal with to like actually do some superhero stuff to like save the people of the town. Obviously, Brier's motivation in that situation was not to save the people of the town, it was to make the situation significantly worse. But for the characters who care a bit more about protecting people, how was that, and how did that sort of contrast to the usual like fighter monster side of the game?
Particularly for Mick, who wasn't at that point a like combat based character really. It was nice to have something that was a threat that made sense for him to be trying to deal with, that wasn't like an aggressor. It was this is the situation, and your character's instinct is to help everybody, so how are you going to work that out? And then kind of use the game mechanics to make that work. It felt like a really good way to start Mick's journey to not that he didn't care about other people, that's always been the way he is, but to start that journey towards wanting to really help everybody. And that's kind of driven the character through this season.
It's sort of a journey from just along for the ride and like competent and does stuff but mostly isn't kind of driving things, to actually being a hero. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you think about how he was in the very first series of Vigil, it was Percy and Renko that were really taking the lead, right? Of that sort of
and
stuff.
all he was trying to do was keep Pippa safe, which is essentially what he's doing now, just to everybody.
And now has the ability to do that.
Yeah. So it was a really nice kind of kick-off for that story arc for him.
I thought that moment of Melody wanting to help but also not wanting to reveal herself too much out in the open was really interesting as well.
Yeah, I would like to do some more with that. I think that is a quite a central conflict in a character that has a lot of contradictions, really. And yeah, Brier's made it a lot worse by having this rock troll in the cafe.
Yeah, Brian
and a fairy and a badger in a top hat.
And a mote of light.
Yeah.
That could have probably put up an illusion to make it look like a totally normal cafe, but didn't.
Yeah. I just it's not in my it didn't really feel like the right thing to do in that scene for Melody to object. Like when we were setting the scene of who was there, for me it would have been just saying no to to what Strat wanted to do. But actually that's going to be really complicated for Melody going forward if anybody asks her about what was happening.
I think it's quite nice to imagine that Melody saw Diane's consternation and put that first in that moment.
Yeah.
Even if that wasn't like explicitly stated or intentional in the moment, it still feels very Melody.
Yeah. Yeah, her little bud, little weird friend.
So much to learn.
Yeah, but I mean, Melody's not necessarily a great teacher for being human, but equally it does show how far she is calm on her own. So yeah, I enjoyed that.
Anybody got any questions for me or any of your fellow cast members?
I guess it's a peek behind the curtain question in a way, in that we were playing thinking we had a shorter timeline to get the day done. When you were designing...
we were at the table, we were on a deadline.
Yes. Did that change your planning in any way or in any meaningful way?
I did deliberately keep the scenario simpler than I have for the last couple of these. That wasn't specifically because we had less time today. It was because the last two recordings went a bit longer than I would have liked, and we were all a bit zonked by the end of them, and I didn't want that to happen again. So I deliberately, still throwing in like the complicating factor of Diane, who would potentially, if you'd handled her differently, or I think there were some good manipulate someone roles at some point. If those had gone more wrong, she wanted Becky to succeed so that she would see what would happen. So she could have been more in your way.
Yeah.
So still having that complicating factor in there, but having a very simple antagonist who has a thing that she wants to make happen and the wherewithal to make it happen, and is mostly just like running towards the place she can throw the big lever to make the thing happen. And the mystery is just find her, figure out what she's up to and stop her. You know, keeping it fairly simple. And then in terms of on the day, once we actually had that deadline running, I think probably I try to be generous with all of the information rolls anyway, but I think even more so this time, because it's like, don't hold anything back.
Yeah.
Once you've rolled well enough and you've asked the appropriate question, just like have all of the info so you know what you're doing, and we don't have to faff about half in the dark finding out what's going on. We can just get the situation out there and start responding to it.
Yeah, which I think also really helped with the planning of it being quite a big... It's not like we were trying to find something really hard and arcade. It was like, there's a big electrical monster out there. Go get it.
Yeah, I'm thinking about Tourist Trap. Trying to do Tourist Trap with the sort of data eating with us three, for example, would have been appalling because none of us are investigators. If you had,
you're all sharp 0.
Yeah.
If you
Which still gives you, like, the average you're going to roll on that is still going to be a mixed success, which will get you an answer, but it's still not the best.
Yeah, and it's Dave rolling today, which is all bets are off, really. So I think you were right to be generous with the information. Once we gave you the opportunity to be, if you hadn't been, I don't know what we would be doing.
Yeah, we'd still be rolling investigations at the start. I don't know who the enemy is. Who's Mick running at? I don't know.
You wouldn't have got out of the department store. You'd just be in Brier's House of Horrors. Which, if we'd pivoted the production to be Mick and Melody and bits of Diane versus Brier and his crew of chaos,
It's just been a haunted house episode.
That would still have been satisfying. We could have kept the giant in tow for another one.
Yeah, we'd have ticked a few less of those boxes at the end. Did you find anything? No, I was trapped in Brier's mirror.
Yes. Epilogue, and the giant wakes up and...
The whole thing happened whilst you were stuck in this.
Yeah.
Consequences for Brier's actions. They have to happen at some point.
Yeah. People going to the Feywild, people travelling and visiting the Hells or whatever it did. Mick and Melody stuck in a shop.
The things that could have been.
That's the thing. Was it intentional that, because the last 2 series have been pretty big in terms of scale, like where they've gone, what's happened. Obviously, that wasn't like some of the things that happened weren't planned, but was it a conscious decision to make this one sort of smaller and more local to Sherrydown?
Definitely, I try and keep. If we've had one that goes very realm hopping, then I'm conscious that the premise of the series is supposed to be it's about this town and that specific setting. So I want to keep bringing us back to that whenever I can. So yeah, keeping it kind of local and not giving you any specific. You can still get the ghost train whenever you want, but like not giving you a specific reason to go heading off to another realm. Definitely deliberate, but still wanting to bring in the ties to like wider things that are happening, like Diane being tied into the hunt, potentially riding again, and obviously the giant is a huge plot point that we've now it's not a danger anymore, although it's something that somebody else could use, but like the giant himself is quiescent and isn't going to cause a problem for you unless he's attacked.
Or he sees what people have done to his space.
Or that gets crossed. Start creating champions left and right willy-nilly to go and mess up the English Sorcery Guild or whoever he sees as responsible. At the end of this production, what sort of situation do you find your characters in? Do you have thoughts about like what their priorities might be next time we see them on stage? With Strat, you've already said that Brier has sort of tied a ribbon around that particular project and might just be back to being a general agent of chaos at this point.
Yeah, I think they always have something they're interested in. They've got a close connection with Ginny and and Cam has disappeared, and so there's no one to work Netflix or Disney Plus or whatever anymore to play the films and all the media. So
did you get to Endgame before Cam disappeared?
I reckon Infinity War happened.
Oh no!
So everybody has disappeared, and then Cam disappeared. Terrible.
Oh dear.
So probably interested to
find friend.
Yeah. Find source of the joy I gain from watching stupid mortal films.
Great. Continually pursuing that joy.
Yeah.
I think mine's less of a priority for Mick and more for me as the player. It'd be nice to get Mick's hands on his chosen weapon.
Of course, yes.
But Mick obviously doesn't even know that's a thing yet,
Yeah.
so would have no drive to do that. I mean, he's just going to be fixing everything.
I should have had you pull it out of the ground when you formed your brick golem.
That's what I was trying to.
Oh, you can't psychically project these things.
Well, no,
use your words.
I know I could have done, but I thought no, I don't want to.
I'm not sure it would have been enough in that situation either. So it was I'd much rather have turned into a big brick robot.
That will be I think that will be a great first scene for the next time you're playing, Dave.
Yeah.
We'll be out on the hillside.
Yeah. Finding it.
And then, using it. You've got a mission now. You've got
well,
a destiny.
That also ties into Mick kind of now having two lives that he's trying to run. It's like he's got to go and do this quest to get this thing, but he also wants to help rebuild.
So many brick walls fell down.
There's so much work.
Mm-hmm.
I think the hunt is going to be a big concern. I think she may still be more concerned at stopping the hunt again, but obviously there are wider questions of who has knowing more about Dr. Bantham, as in who has created Diane, and why he's chosen that path, and if that says anything about why I'm no longer there.
A personal mystery and one with big consequences for all of your friends as well on the hunt side. Exciting.
Did you have a plan for what would happen if the giant did? Does that not just destroy everything? If the giant did stand up.
Shall I read you the... so I have to write a countdown for every one of these mysteries. That is part of the GM prep for Monster of the Week, which tells me basically what happens if all of you get stuck in a department store and don't solve the mystery.
Yep.
So Monster of the Week countdowns have 6 steps. Day. Becky disturbs the giant while laying a fibre optic broadband line, taking on some of its powers in its dreams. Shadows. Guided by the giant's dreams, Becky wires up the brick sculptures as surreptitiously as she can. This is all stuff that had happened off screen before we even started. Dusk. Becky takes over Sherrydown substation by force and fortifies herself inside. You got there first.
Phew.
Sunset. Becky powers up her network and starts shocking the giant's heart. Nightfall. The giant's convulsions cause an even bigger earthquake. Midnight. The giant rises, destroying Brackshire County.
Wow.
Always a possibility for the bad end to happen. But, like I say, the guidance is these are the steps that would happen if the hunters did nothing. And I assume that's never going to be the case.
Wow. Lucky you ran through moss.
Yeah, lucky I managed to get through moss. It would be a disaster if I hadn't.
You averted that, thankfully. So that's not the situation we're starting our next one in.
Yeah, any notes before the next session? Yes, there is now nothing.
There's always a little briefing at the start of these sessions where I have to fill in because things haven't aired yet. I have to say, oh yes, by the way, the emission effect's not working and Jess and Cam have disappeared. So it would have been fun next time to be so the situation is the entire county is rubble. Do what you will with that.
And there's a giant wandering around, I guess.
A giant just stomping about.
I'm a bit sad for him that he's stuck there. I think it's sad.
I think he is tragic. I think there's a thing. I think giants in English folklore are inherently tragic, and I wanted to put a bit of that in there.
Yeah.
That's okay, because Mick can help by letting him dream also did wonder, because we've learnt from Diane that I forget who we learned, but eventually the heart will stop, and the giant does die. And the giant seems to be the source of a lot of power and ley lines and stuff, so what happens when they die in a couple of 100 years? That seems...
Big question. But that's a nice, it's another nice thread to potentially pursue if we're like, this is a bad end for this giant who seems to be a nice person.
Yeah.
Maybe you want to make that a project between yourselves to see if there is another way for him to end. Could you send him somewhere else and then wake him up, kind of thing, so that he wouldn't cause the destruction that he would cause here? So, with big magic and things like that, and stuff that you sort of projects that you do over multiple sessions, stuff that is that big is possible to do. You're all getting very powerful now. So if you decided that was a goal, if you want to help this giant have a nice retirement instead of just dying beneath the earth, then that would absolutely be a thing I'd support.
I'm going to think about that, yeah.
That's a nice note to end on, I think. Thank you all so much for playing again.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
And thank you all very much at home in the cheap seats and the dress circle for listening.
This has been Vigil, a main house production from Merely Role Players. It stars Helen Stratton as Melody Bantham, Dave as Mick Mason, and Strat as Brier. I'm Matt Boothman and I play the supporting cast. Editing and sound design by me, and the theme music is by Alexander Pankhurst. We were playing Monster of the Week, a role-playing game by Michael Sands, published by Evil Hat Productions. You can find Monster of the Week at genericgames.co.nz. Merely Role Players is a Foggy Outline production in association with Blackshaw Theatre Company. Until next time, if drama be the food of life, play on.